Hey everyone, thanks for coming back. Hope you appreciated the break because you are going to want some energy for this topic. Oh, did you catch that?
Volcano Energy.
Yes, so we all love Bitcoin. We think Bitcoin mining's cool. What's even cooler or hotter? It's doing it with a volcano. And we have Gerson to introduce Volcano Energy, the first El Salvadorian Bitcoin mining company using the power of a volcano.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gerson Martinez. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Volcano Energy. As we just heard, the first privately held Bitcoin mining company based out of here in El Salvador. I'll be joined shortly by Josué Lopez, our CEO. He's stuck in a little bit of traffic on his way back over. He'll be joining us shortly. But I wanted to start out, first of all, giving you a little bit of my kind of background and context and why I'm involved with this company. And I'll be super brief about it, but basically my parents, 40 years ago, my parents are from El Salvador, and 40 years ago they left this country to go to the States. I was born and raised out there. I had my whole life. I got educated there. I worked in capital markets in the United States. Over the course of let's say probably 3 or 4 years after I left capital markets in 2013, I got my Bitcoin education as, let's call it as an American, right? As a person living in the States with Salvadoran parents. Learned about Bitcoin. I eventually became a Bitcoin miner myself. But again, this is all in the context of a person who lives in the States and whose family left this country without really any intention of looking back, right? Because I think you guys might know El Salvador went through some really difficult periods in its history, right? So my family and I had no intention of looking back and ever repatriating or being back here, right? So you can imagine in 2021, the feeling of the overwhelming feelings that I felt when I heard the announcement that El Salvador, of all the countries in the world, this would be the country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender and start taking these steps. So at that moment in time, myself, and then it also turns out Josué Lopez, who will be here shortly, another Salvadoran Bitcoin miner. I think the both of us and those of us who are involved in this industry felt incredibly compelled to find a way to make this industry a reality here in El Salvador. So today what we want to talk about is, first of all, introduce you to what this company is. I want to talk a little bit about why renewable energy here in El Salvador is not only possible, but we think is the key to energy abundance and energy independence and financial sovereignty for a country that's anchoring itself to Bitcoin. So in order to kind of introduce the topic, I want to show you guys a short video that our teams put together to introduce you to Volcano Energy.
Welcome to the land of volcanoes, where renewable energy of Bitcoin lay the foundation of an abundant financial future accessible to all. We are Volcano Energy, a Salvadorian renewable energy company aiming to break paradigms and mine Bitcoin sustainably in Bitcoin country. Our journey begins here with the construction of a 241 megawatt solar and wind energy park. In addition to this park, we have also begun to develop geothermal power plants that harness the natural heat of our volcanoes. Together, these plants will propel El Salvador toward energy independence and a decarbonized, sustainable future. We use Bitcoin mining to adjust demand for energy in real time, allowing us to maintain efficient, reliable, and profitable operations. We are pioneers in sustainable Bitcoin mining, committed to a future where clean energy and technological innovation converge for the benefit of all. We also recognize the importance of decentralization. That's why we aim to drive the global distribution of hash rate, creating a stronger shield against potential 51% attacks. Like flowing lava, the Bitcoin network becomes more resilient and robust. This is the path to a sustainable future where energy from our volcanoes fuels our aspirations. The electrical grid strengthens, Bitcoin mining advances on zero carbon emitting sources of energy, and our communities thrive thanks to this clean and powerful energy. Volcano Energy. We got the power.
Awesome. What do we think? Let's give a hand to the team that put this together. Thank you guys very much. So we wanted to show this video to give a very brief introduction to what exactly we're going to be building in El Salvador. As you heard, the name of this company and the long-term vision of this company is to leverage the country's abundant geothermal energy resources to mine Bitcoin here in El Salvador. But we are starting with a 241 megawatt wind and solar energy park being developed currently in 2 different parts of the country. Now, for those of you in the room, I don't know, let me do a quick show of hands. Who here is involved in the mining industry in some capacity somewhere in the world? Okay, we have a handful, but the majority of you here are not involved in the industry. So I think it's important to talk a little bit about why Bitcoin mining, integrating Bitcoin mining into renewable energy operations is important. So again, in this country, there is an abundance of this natural resource of geothermal energy capacity, and of course, this is also a place that's closer to the equator than, say, North America. So we also have terrain that's very, very well equipped for wind and solar energy assets. Now, the issue when you build out wind and solar assets is that this is intermittent sources of energy, right? You have the sun shining for X amount of hours a day, and the wind doesn't always necessarily blow consistently, right? So you need a way to subsidize the cost of that capex that you make, that investment that you make in wind and energy assets. The way that we are deciding to subsidize the cost and to effectively make a faster return on this energy infrastructure investment is through Bitcoin mining, because Bitcoin miners are a buyer of last resort for renewable energy, right? These are data centers that can be turned on and off instantly, right, to consume energy. They act like a sponge when you have too much energy being produced at your power plant, be it solar, be it wind, or be it geothermal. And they can also be turned down if the grid, if the country that you're operating in demands all of the energy that you're producing. So this is what we call a flexible load. Bitcoin mining provides a flexible load for the Salvadoran energy grid. Now, I think, of course, importantly, at the same time, when you're mining Bitcoin, you're mining this unconfiscatable money, which is legal tender in El Salvador, right? So from a sovereignty perspective, we think this is an incredibly important element of the overall business model for the company. We are going to have a HODL strategy here at Volcano Energy. At the end of the day, we are here in Bitcoin country, and we want to denominate, our lives. We want to denominate our economy on Bitcoin. So I think you're going to find that this company is run by Bitcoiners. It's working in tandem with the government of El Salvador. And there's Josue. Come on up, Josue. It's going to be working hand in hand with the government of El Salvador, which, of course, as you know, is very, very supportive of this industry. Just in the last panel, we heard about all we heard about the tax laws that are being enacted here in this country to make energy generation and Bitcoin mining all the more profitable and all the more productive here in the country. But I'm going to give Josue just a minute. We just got started. I was telling him a little bit about my background. But Josue here is our CEO. I'd love to give him a time to introduce himself. Go ahead.
Thank you, Harrison. Hey, everyone. How are you? So sorry for the delay. Traffic is insane these days in El Salvador. But just to give a brief introduction of who I am and how I came to found Volcano Energy and everything that we're doing here in El Salvador. So my background is in engineering, mathematics, and economics. I worked as a partner in a private equity firm in Switzerland, through which we designed and constructed and fully developed the largest Bitcoin mine, the largest green Bitcoin mine in Europe, in the Nordics, in Norway, Finland, and Sweden. So when we got the question of how can we mine in Bitcoin country, we were faced with many challenges, mainly the lack of security, but obviously that we had a great friend called Nayib Bukele that was able to solve that for us. That really opened the door for us to really be creative and find a way in which Bitcoin mining would be profitable, would be efficient, not just for us, but for every single miner that would come here to El Salvador, to want to plug in their ASICs, to want to be part of this amazing movement and decentralize their hash rate. So that's how Volcano Energy started. We're now, we were faced with the question, how are we gonna find cheap energy? El Salvador is the third most expensive economy in Latin America for energy, which is insane. Now the reason for that is mainly due to corruption. For the last 30 years, prices of energy generation were overblown. The budgets were overblown by 800, 900%. Hydroelectric dams that should have cost $100 million ended up costing $1.2 billion. So in the end, these hydroelectric dams were forced to charge for their energy at insane prices. And that's how we end up with the third most expensive country in Latin America for energy. So what we decided is that we had to generate our own energy. We wanted to be shielded from economic and geopolitical problems. We decided not to go with any fossil fuel, because if we built a massive 300 megawatt natural gas plant, which actually was built just recently, we would be faced with the geopolitical challenges that any other natural gas plant faces. Problems and disruptions in the supply chain. We're obviously living in a very unstable geopolitical environment. A political environment in which Russia suddenly decides to attack a country and therefore decides to stop supplying the world with natural gas. What would happen to our mines then? Our prices would increase, or even they would stop working if we don't get natural gas. So we decided only to extract the natural resource that Bitcoin country has to offer. Now what are those? Those are hydro, geothermal, solar, and wind. Now, obviously these four energies are pretty amazing. Two of them are intermittent, two of them are baseload energies like hydro and geothermal. Geothermal takes 4 to 7 years. It's a very capex intensive project, but it's by far one of my favorite forms of energy, just after nuclear. We decided to begin with wind and solar in order to reduce the cash burn that is associated with a high capex project that takes 4 years to complete. And therefore, this is where we're at. We're developing wind, solar. We're also developing geothermal simultaneously. We're in the process of beginning the first private geothermal plant in all of Central America. And this is just the first steps. I'm sure in the upcoming years, you'll be able to see new amazing updates. You'll be able to go to the plant and see for yourself how El Salvador is finally mining, how El Salvador is now taking charge in the decentralization of the hash rate. And you'll be able to see for yourself, as we all say, don't trust, but verify. So next year, you'll be able to verify for yourselves, and hopefully come bring your ASICs and plug in your miners.
Excellent. We did get a chance to show the video, so everyone got, I think, a visualization of what's going to be happening. But I think it's probably, we have a couple of minutes. I think this is a unique opportunity to also maybe answer some questions from the audience. I think what you've seen already, maybe on social media, and what you're hearing today, I think is hopefully maybe it's for the first time some of you are hearing some of this stuff. So we're very much interested as well to understand what questions you might have about operating a Bitcoin mining company in this country, or anything that you've heard up here from us today.
Is there an estimation of how much power untapped in Volcano Energy is in El Salvador?
Yes. So I was recently talking with the president of La Geo, which is the geothermal company in El Salvador. They run two or three. One of them is combined, so I would say 2 geothermal plants that produce about 28% of all Salvadoran consumption energy. However, there are 27 geothermal reservoirs that have been confirmed, 77 volcanoes that are believed to have geothermal reservoirs under them. So in discussions with him, obviously this is not, I would say, tangible facts. There has not been an exploration on every single geothermal reservoir, but El Salvador could be the sole producer of energy for the entire Mesoamerican region. We could produce energy for every single country from Panama to Mexico and still have more energy. So there is a lot of geothermal energy under our ground. And just to link it up to what Volcano Energy has found, with our exploration projects, we have found a 95% certainty that we will find 32 megawatts in Conchagua, 60% certainty that we will find 42 megawatts in Conchagua, and there is 30% certainty that we'll find 50 megawatts or more. And this is just a very small reservoir. We're starting with Conchagua as a very small proof of concept, so we can have energy for our mines and energy for Bitcoin City. But rest aware that Bitcoin country has more than enough geothermal energy for the entire region, for all the ASICs that you guys want to come plug in. For every person that wants to go live in Bitcoin City, you'll have the energy coming from a volcano.
And I think also it's important to note also that an additional effect of being able to tap this incredible amount of energy resources is that the net effect will be that the average price of electricity for Salvadorans will come down. Right now, the average Salvadoran pays something between 16 and 19 cents a kilowatt hour, which is, if you come from another country, it's an incredible amount of money to spend on energy. There's no reason that Salvadorans should be paying that much when we have this much geothermal energy capacity beneath the ground.
Yeah, hi. So I think it's incredibly exciting what you guys are talking about. 2 years ago, I was making a documentary. Gerson knows about it. And we went and filmed at the Berlin geothermal plant, and they just started mining Bitcoin at that time. I was just wondering, is that connected to Volcano Energy, or is that a separate initiative?
So that is fully operated and owned by the government, and as we advise on ways in which they can improve efficiency, mainly on their miners, use the stranded energy coming from the geothermal mine, but that is still, I would say that was the first proof of concept that El Salvador ever did in Bitcoin mining. So up until now, they hold anywhere from 3 to 5 megawatts running with geothermal energy. What we aim to achieve is also give a share to the government, the way they're doing in Berlin. So I'm sure that in the upcoming years, obviously geothermal has a very long lead time, but you'll be able to see more and more mines that are built in a way that is tourist friendly. So Berlin, as you probably know, is it's still a construction site. It's very dangerous to go there. But the way we're building and designing our project is in a way that every single attendee of adopting Bitcoin will be able to go there and see how the energy is produced, how it's condensed, how it's stored, how it's used by the ASICs, and how the ASICs are able to stabilize the grid. And obviously that all results in savings for the Salvadoran people.
Cool. Back there.
Is really exciting as a Salvadoran. I'm very proud. I'm curious, who owns Volcano Energy? Is it a public-private partnership? And is there a way for us to invest, or yeah, how is that structured?
Yep, thank you for that question. So as I mentioned, my background is in private equity. So when we were racing this product, we were faced with a question of whether do we really want to offer it to the public? Do we want to do a bond? Do we want to do a debt offering? And the thing that we decided is that we would only tap into those a very small group of private investors that first of all believed in El Salvador before anyone else did, and those investors that are completely committed to the Bitcoin objective, to the decentralization of the Bitcoin network. The way the equity is distributed, if that's your question, there's 77% that is given to private investors, and there's 23% that is given directly to an autonomous energy company that is owned by the government of El Salvador. So yes, you could say that it's a public-private partnership. And the way that you guys can join in on this vision is by spreading awareness of the need that the world has to decentralize the global hash rate. We don't want a 51% attack, and therefore we have to move away from developed economies that have cheap fossil fuel energy that can fuel their miners. We have to move to new renewable energy, more stable energy that will fuel the new development of the Bitcoin network.
And another way you can support, and if you're a miner, you can participate in our efforts to decentralize and distribute hash rate globally, is by joining our mining pool. We launched Lava Pool in partnership with Luxor just about last month. We're specifically targeting small miners that operate with less than 2 petahash. We have promotional and discounted mining pool fees specifically for folks who operate small, who have small operations. Again, it's important to us that hash rate be globally distributed and decentralized, because we don't want power centers in China, whether it's China or the U.S. or the Middle East, to have control over all of the hash rate.
Yeah, and one last thing as well. Eventually, once the project is fully functional, we will be able to offer and dilute some of the equity to offer it to the public. This is not going to happen now. We want to develop the energy. We want to be able to have, if we're going to offer a public, sort of a public offering for an investment product, we want to ensure that El Salvador holds great returns, that it has an amazing guarantee backed by the generation of energy. So you might see in the upcoming years a token offering for Bitcoiners, obviously listed in Bitfinex securities, potentially a bond that is collateralized by the energy generation, not by public infrastructure from the government, like what was first discussed about 2 years ago.
I think we have time for one last question.
Do you foresee any change on the electrical law that is in place in El Salvador, or would you go through the market adjustment for these rates?
Yeah, so along with our project, we also were faced with a lot of challenges, mainly the fact that El Salvador is one country that has never had net metering legislation. What that means is that generators cannot generate excess, inject it to the grid, and then withdraw it at any time, which is obviously very important for intermittent energy generation. Where, for example, with solar, you're only generating when the sun is shining, but what happens at night? So what we decided is that we wanted to generate much more, 5 times more than we were using during the day, inject it to the grid, and then be able to withdraw that from the grid. So that is one way in which we're actively helping legislators into upgrade their legislation and to make us operate, our grid operate as a developed economy. Aside from that, we're also, we're repowering 6 substations in the country. We're installing the first commercial 230 kilovolt line across El Salvador. This will also increase efficiency across the country and will reduce charge losses when traveling that load through several hundred kilometers.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
For your time.